Welcome to zZounds Live. This is John. I'm John. And this is Chris.
I'm Chris.
I'm starting off so well.
Happy Cinco de Mayo, everybody.
Woo! But yeah, thank you all for joining us. And we're stoked to have you here, dude. And just kind of talk to you about music and gear and life and punk rock, Americana, and all the good stuff. So hope you're ready.
All right. That's my wheel. You just named my wheelhouse. That's my wheelhouse.
Perfect. Cool, man. But yeah, just for anyone that's maybe not familiar, just want to kind of let you introduce yourself and maybe if you don't mind kind of going into kind of like the Chris Shiflett origin story. And kind of how you got involved in music and kind of
totally
how you got to where you are now.
So I was really lucky growing up that I had two older brothers who were total music obsessives, by the time I was ever like a conscious, being. And so I just grew up around their record collections, and they just had really good record collections. It was, it was Elvis, the Beatles, Rolling Stones, it was Bowie, it was later on, it was Sabbath, it was Aerosmith, Zeppelin, it was, it was all that good stuff.
Yeah.
And then, in my, really, I don't know when my older brother Mike started playing guitar. He started playing guitar, I think he's maybe before I was born. I'm not sure. He always it's just in my memory, he just always played guitar.
Yeah.
And then my brother Scott started playing bass. And then I picked up the guitar when I was about 11. And it was just the thing that we did. It was like, we just, I don't know. I was just that was like always an obsessive focus for me when I was a kid. It's kind of, to the detriment of school and sports and anything else. I just loved it. And and then started playing in bands in high school and did that whole thing, and then moved to LA like when I turned 18, right at the beginning of 1990. And it's just been going ever since.
Yeah, there you go. I feel like you didn't really have too much of a choice as a youngster, with your brother's influence and everything. It was like, I know I've talked to some people when, they've had older brothers or siblings, kind of just be like, hey, you know what? I need a bass player for my band, so you're the bass player now. And then they're like, and then I became a professional bass player, 20 years later or whatever.
It's funny with my brothers because like we all kind of like, it was like whatever my older brother Mike was into was just what we were all into to a point. And then Scott kind of branched off and I kind of went with him. And then I kind of branched off from that. So eventually, once we got into the age like where we were all playing and stuff, we all kind of had our own somewhat different things that we were into. And sadly, like we were never in bands and stuff growing up. Like we never sat around playing together, but I still picked up a lot from them, just on how to play.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's like that is my one regret with I probably have a few more than one, but it's one of my big regrets with growing up. I wish we had been that family that sat around on the porch, strumming acoustic guitars, but like we weren't at all.
Yeah, not every family, gets to be the Partridge Family, I guess.
So I've tried to encourage my kids to do that. I'm like, hey, how about on Sundays we'll sit around, we'll learn bluegrass songs. It'll be so fun. My kids are
like, what? Bluegrass?
No way, Dad. Yeah.
I was gonna say, do your kids actively listen to your music, or how's that relationship?
They actively try to not listen to my music. Well, we're talking about. I was talking about this with my wife the other day. When my oldest was really young, like he was like a little toddler, he used to have this like toy sword that came in this little sheath, and he would take that little sword sheath and he would put on AC/DC Highway to Hell, and he would like air guitar to it all around the room. So they definitely like, of course I exposed my kids to my record collection a lot when they were little, but then, like they're all teenage boys now. So they're like into other stuff. They all have their, like my brothers, they all have their things that they're into. And it's
for
cool.
Sure. Yeah. I was going to ask, lately, probably haven't been, touring or traveling or, as much as you have in the past. Have you found like the balance between work and family has kind of gotten a little easier since you've been on the road less, or how do you balance those two lives?
Well, normally, I mean, my kids, my wife and kids, they're just used to me being gone all the time. It's just sort of the only thing we've ever known, because I've been doing this since before I had a family. So they've just been kind of born into it. So, so for me, this last year and change has been wonderful to be home so much. And like with Foo Fighters, we've been working a lot since like the end of summer, but it's like because we put out an album a couple of months ago. And so we had a lot of stuff to do, kind of setting that up. But it's great because it's almost like, I go off to I'm still home. So I wake up with my family and I get my kids going and then go out to the studio and do whatever we're going to do. And then usually you're home by dinner time. And it's almost like having, it's almost like being a 9-to-5er again.
I was going to say, you got a day job, dude.
I know. It's a pretty good day job.
Yeah, there you go. Well, cool, man. Yeah. I think, from what I, know about your history with music and things like that, you seem to kind of come out of the punk rock, kind of scene a little bit. Was that something your brothers kind of threw you into as well, or is that something you kind of found on your own?
No, that was really like, when I wasn't like a punker kid growing up. I was like a heavy metal kid, like hard rock kid, you know what I mean? I was like more into that. But where I lived, I grew up in Santa Barbara, and like at a certain point, like the only like really like live gigs to go to that were like small local things were like punk rock and like speed metal or thrash metal or whatever. That was like, it was just around. So like, especially like, I started skating in junior high and that's when I first got exposed to like JFA and Black Flag and stuff like that, But I remember like buying like the Sex Pistols record, which was like way after that. I mean, it's like 10 years after it came out or whatever. And like bringing it home and like hiding it in the back of my record collection, cause I didn't want my brothers to make fun of me. Stuff like that, but, cause like, I don't know if people are so judgmental about music anymore, but back then, man, you would just make fun of each other's record purchases constantly.
Oh, dude. Yeah. The older I get, the more I'm just like, I just jammed that album and I loved it. But like,
totally,
as a kid,
no regrets.
There's some albums you're just like, we had, the compact disc players, that weren't clear or anything like that. So you put it in there, don't let anyone see the cover of the album or whatever.
Oh yeah. That's a good thing about getting older is you no longer have guilty pleasures. You just like what you like,
Exactly. I mean, I got Spotify telling everybody what I'm listening to now. So
totally.
I'm like, there's no secrets here. I've been rocking that album, whatever it is for
that's right.
however long. But yeah, man, it's cool because, when I started kind of listening to your solo stuff and then you had the podcast, it's all very Americana genre leaning.
Sure.
Would you say like, heavy metal or punk rock kind of like, was there a smooth transition into that genre of music or how did you go from one to another?
Well, it's definitely like, I mean, with the punk rock stuff, there's definitely like, that's a lane, the punk rock dude that gets into honky tonk eventually. That's like, it's such a thing. But like, for me, I already liked bands like X and stuff like that. And Social D, you could even say, had a little bit of that residue. Mm-hmm. And I love those bands and some of like the cowpunk stuff that came out of the 80s and things like that. But when I joined No Use for a Name, it was really the singer for No Use, Tony, that got me into to all the alt country stuff. So that was like kind of, I knew like the obvious stuff before. I knew like Patsy Cline and Johnny Cash, and I had a couple of those records, but it wasn't until I got into Sun Volt and Wilco and, Whiskey Town and Old 97s and bands like that I kind of wanted to dig a little deeper back. And then, because I didn't grow up with country music, I just kind of went off the rails, like did the Buck Owens, Merle Haggard deep dive for like a long time, which you could pretty much just focus on that forever. But there's just so much. And I felt like I had so much catching up to do. I was almost like gone through all the ages, all the different eras, the outlaw stuff and the 80s stuff and the 90s stuff. And, even the older stuff, the 40s stuff, and then bluegrass and all, there's just like, it's an endless well. You know?
Yeah. There's so much of it. And which I wanted to bring up. It's kind of, with a lot of your artists that you're interviewing on your podcast, are those artists that you've just kind of been listening to and then you're like, I want to reach out to them and see if we can get them on the show, or were they friends first, or kind of, how do you find your guests for the podcast?
Yeah, it's evolved a lot over the years. I mean, honestly, like nowadays I'm super lazy about it. Like I've, because I've been doing it since like 2013 or something. So I've been doing it for a minute. And so I know, there's like a bunch of publicists and managers and stuff that I know, and they occasionally like will send me, you know, different people to interview and that sort of thing. But like when I started, I kind of had a specific, it was sort of two things. It was like a specific angle to try to find some of the folks that had played around the Bakersfield sound scene. Try to find those folks and reach out to them. And then also just kind of going through my address book going like, well, who could I interview? You know, like, oh, how about Nick from the Hives? You know, how about Johnny Two Bags? You know what I mean? And then it became like, well, who do I know that knows John Doe? You know, and maybe I could get a hold of that dude. And so it's just sort of like that. And I've gone through different phases. Like, you know, if you figure it's like, I got like Foo Fighters stuff keeps me busy. I got my family keeps me obviously very busy. I got my solo stuff. The podcast, I love doing it. It's super fun, but really like organizationally, it very much comes last. You know? So I kind of like, you know, like I've been lucky that like I said, I sort of made relationships with a bunch of people kind of in that world. And so like, you know, it's not hard to find people to interview, but I'm probably like, you know, 1 out of every 10 or so is somebody like I actually reach out to like, ooh, I'd like to interview that person. But
for sure. And you're doing it once a week now, right?
I've been doing it once a week. Yeah, I've been getting them out once a week, which is killing me. It's too much. I want to go back to being much lazier about it. But during COVID times, like nobody was touring, and all of a sudden you could like, because we're all doing it on Zoom or whatever, and it's like, you know, you can like everybody's publicist was looking to book them on like every podcast because it was like one of the only things that you could do, you know?
Totally. Yeah. No, I feel you. The once a week thing can be a lot. You know, we're doing these live streams about once a week, and then, you know, I feel you. I'm like, man, like there's people out there
too much
doing these podcasts and doing a lot of these things that, you know, it takes a lot of effort, but in the end, you know, it's ultimately rewarding and it's always really fun. And
totally.
So do you have plans to kind of keep that? I know in your last episode, you kind of did like a poll and see if people wanted you to slow down or keep it up once a week. Have you decided, you're going to do the once a week still for a while? Or
I think I'm going to keep it going once a week for a little while because I got more feedback saying continue doing that than otherwise. So I'm going to keep doing it once a week until I've got like kind of a big dusty backlog of them now. So I'm like trying to get them out. I hate when they sit there for too long because then it's like by the time you put it out, like the person you talk to has already got like another album out or whatever, you know. It's like, or it's like I'm posting them now and it's like me talking to somebody going like, "Can you believe this COVID stuff?" You know what I mean? It's like it gets dated fast.
Yeah,
you know, you gotta get them out. So yeah, I've got a bunch in the can. I'm just trying to kind of work my way through.
Nice. You got any notable ones you want to let us know about that are going to be dropping soon or?
Oh God, I would have to look at my list. You know who I just interviewed yesterday that was so fun because I've never met him and wasn't super familiar with his music really before I interviewed him. Do you know that guitar player? Well, multi-instrumentalist, Dom Flemons. He used to be in Carolina Chocolate Drops. Now he does solo stuff.
I know the name.
Yeah, he was great, man. He's like you know, it's like talking to like, you know, he's like a music scholar as much as he's an artist. So it's like, I just kind of tried to shut up and listen, you know?
I feel you.
Yeah.
That's awesome though, man. I think, you know, with the podcast, you know, obviously you've been a musician for most of your life. Did you find like getting into podcasting was like a whole new challenge for you, or was it just, all right, I'm going to turn the mic on and talk?
It was definitely a whole new challenge. Cause like I'd never interviewed people before, and so that was tough to like trying to figure out the pacing of it. And I tell you what, that's the one drawback to this whole like Zoom interview thing is there's just enough latency in Zoom that you wind up kind of stepping on each other's toes, like, you know, they wind up cutting people off and they're still in the middle of their thing and you think it's done and then you start talking and it kind of screws it up. But that whole thing, like when I first started interviewing people, I would listen back and go, God, shut up, man. Stop talking about myself. You know what I mean? I'd be like, I'm just stepping all over them. So I really had to like try to like take a deep breath and relax with it, you know? Yeah. And then, you know, nobody likes hearing their own voice back. Like I'd be recording the intro and I'd listen back and be like, oh, I sound like an idiot. Don't do that.
Yeah.
You know,
I can relate. You know, I wasn't really an interviewer before kind of doing this gig. You know, once, you know, COVID happened and whatnot, we're like, yeah, let's start interviewing some people. And they're like, yeah, you can do it, man. I'm like, all right, cool. Yeah. Well, you know, I'll give it a shot and see how it goes.
You're doing a great job. You're doing a great job.
I was hoping you'd say that. But I feel you about the listening back thing. You listen, you're like, all right, dude, you could have stopped talking like 5 minutes ago.
Totally. Or like, you know what I still do, and will probably always do, and drives me nuts, is I overcomplicate the question. Like, instead of just asking a real concise question, I ask the question and then explain the question.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like you listen back and you're like, I didn't need to do that. That's not necessary. They knew what I meant.
Exactly. I think it's one of those things where you know, you kind of just start talking, and then you're like, all right, I'm going to find an endpoint here somewhere.
Yeah.
And then you got to find the exit, and then you're like, all right, I'm off. Now just let them talk. But yeah, man, no, I think it's super cool. And, you know, I think as far as, you know, the content goes for a podcast during quarantine, you know, it's the perfect time to do it.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, so you recently had Jay from Bad Religion, correct?
Yeah.
And how was that?
So good. I love Jay. Like, you know, I've known Jay for years, and sometimes those are the funnest ones because, you know, there's no like, there's no butterflies because it's just like chit chatting with an old friend. Totally. And I had just read their book. You know, Bad Religion put out a great, like their history, you know, oral history. Mm-hmm. Or it's not an oral history, or was it an oral? I don't even remember. Anyway, it's the, you know, the bad, right? Yeah, it's the Bad Religion book, and it's fantastic. And there was just a lot to talk about. Sometimes that can be daunting when you're talking to somebody that has a really long career because you don't know what they want to reminisce about, or, you know, like when I interviewed Merle Haggard, like, you know, I was so nervous because you know, it's Merle Haggard and he's got a vibe. It's kind of a hard ass, and, you know, known to not be real, you know, nice to people interviewing him. And then also he had a super long, important career, and you don't know what they're going to want to discuss, but man, he was up for anything. Yeah,
that's awesome. Yeah. It's interesting to talk to you about this, you know, cause this is kind of, you know, similar position, you know, that I'm in. So I'm like, all right, cool. Chris Shiflett gets nervous too. That's awesome.
Totally. Always. Yeah, man. It's like, you know, people, I feel like I've been lucky. Like I've never really had, I've had a couple kind of stinker interviews, but I've never had really like terrible interviews. You know what I mean? So, I mean, you know, it's because obviously as fans, we want to talk about the old stuff. You know, usually, unless it's somebody that like just put out their first record, and then there is no old stuff. But like, you know, with the artist that's been around for, you know what I mean? But like, and sometimes people don't really want to talk about that, you know, but it's always like, I don't know, I'm nostalgic, sentimental. Sure. Yeah.
Well, you're back in the studio right now. I heard, right? Are you recording some solo stuff or?
I have been. I went out about, I guess it was a month or two ago. I went out to Nashville and recorded 4 new songs. And that was the first time I've done any solo stuff for a while. I mean, I recorded my last solo record came out in 2019, but I recorded it in 2018. Okay. And I didn't even realize that it had been so long. But I just, you know, during this whole COVID time, I've just been writing so much, but not recording, you know, demoing stuff, but not like not actually getting in the studio. And it was so fun, like just getting in. And, you know, the best feeling in the world to me is like you go into that with like, your crummy little demo, and then you come out of whatever you do and it just gets elevated by the people that you're working with, and
totally,
you know, the sort of the collaboration with whoever's producing it and all the people playing on it. So I was really happy with how it came out. I think I'm going to head back out there soon and maybe record another 4 or 5 tunes or whatever, and we're just kind of cobble together a record here at some point. I had an idea that like I just record like a couple songs here and a couple songs there, and with a bunch of different producers, and that's proving to be a little more difficult to coordinate than I thought it would be. But you know, it's just hard to nail. You know, my schedule's out of, you know, just bananas, and I get these little windows, and I got to just go do it when I can do it, and so I don't know what it's all going to turn into, but I should have some new stuff coming out here pretty soon.
Yeah, I was gonna say, are you setting hard deadlines for yourself, or do you kind of?
Oh God, no.
Yeah.
That's the good thing about my solo stuff. It's like, who cares? You know what I mean? There's no like, it's not like we need this album out by March 31st. You know, it's just like it'll come out when it comes out. And for me, hopefully it comes out sooner than later, because I hate, you know, it's the same thing with like the podcast interviews. Like I hate sitting on tunes. Like as soon as I get them done, I'm like, I just want to put them out.
Yeah.
Yeah. So soon.
Have you noticed like your approach to writing or anything like that has changed with like having more time at home, not being on the road as much, or is it all kind of pretty?
A little bit. Not so much with the writing part of it. I mean, because I've been writing the way I always write, which is usually just sitting there with a pad of paper and a guitar.
Yeah.
I have done a bunch of like co-writes via FaceTime and Zoom and all that, with some friends of mine out in Nashville and stuff. Mm-hmm. And that's been cool. And but what has changed is with all this time at home, I'm a like real lazy demoer. I just get bored making demos by myself. But since I had nothing else to do, I did a lot of that. And so that sort of like forced me to think a lot more about like, lining up the bass part with the kick drum and all that kind of stuff that as a guitar player, I honestly don't spend any time thinking about ever. But if I have to sit here and put it all together myself, I'm like trying to, play like a keyboard part and work stuff out. So that's been really fun. And just, it sort of makes you think of the whole song a little bit more.
Yeah. So with that, have you, what's your home studio gear looking like nowadays for your demos?
So unbelievably hoopty. I have an ancient computer. I have, it's fine. It's fine for what it is. I have an Apogee Ensemble. Uh-huh. I have that Universal Audio box, with all the plugins. Mm-hmm. It's like the greatest thing that ever happened. I have like in the room out there is like kind of set up as like a jam room, and I have a drum set and have recorded a little bit, just me trying to play drums and stuff, which is not great. So to be honest, I've gotten much more comfortable programming drums in Logic for my and learned a couple little engineering tricks from my buddy Oliver, who comes over and engineers for me on how to make that sound a little more human, so that's been fun, but it's pretty goofy, little by little. I just kind of go more and more in the box with all that stuff. And I'm like, do I really want to like mic up the amp out there? I don't know. It's just a fucking demo. Dude, I'll just do, what I mean? Like
100%. Yeah. On this, I literally have, a tube amp next to me, and it sounds amazing, and I love it to death. But most of the time, I'm plugging into my UA Aero. I throw a couple plugins on, and it's perfect for writing. Just goes right into the DAW, and I'm like, all right, job done. And then lately I don't know if you use Logic at all, but they have like the drummers, by name. Yes. So like Kyle and I have been chilling a lot.
It's funny because I made it like a little goal at the beginning of COVID. I was like, I'm going to really learn how to use Pro Tools. And that lasted about a month. And I was like, fuck Pro Tools. I'm just going to use Logic now. It's just so much fucking easier.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, as far as like demoing and songwriting and things like that, I find Logic to be a lot easier for me. If I was maybe a professional engineer, like I'd probably look at Pro Tools a little bit more. But for me, it's like, with Logic, you can, with all the composition tools and stuff like that, you can just kind of, let go and, boom, like you said, you can kind of have just an idea down that you don't have to spend too much time on.
Totally.
And then you send it to the professionals, and then they do all the magic stuff that you need to do.
It's called Pro Tools for a reason, because I can't make it work because it's above my pay grade.
It's not amateur tools. Come on.
Exactly. I am an amateur.
But yeah, man, have you been messing with any new guitars or amps or anything like that with your tone, or?
I like to mess around with some pedals and stuff. I have more pedals than I'm ever going to actually plug in and see what they do. But yeah, it's funny. I was just, after we do this, I'm actually going to do something I haven't done for a long time and just jam with some friends. I got a couple old buddies coming over, and so I was like throwing together my little mini pedal board, for my that I keep over here with some stuff, but actually, if you want to talk about new guitars, I just got this right here is a very, very special guitar, because I don't know if you know this, but my birthday is tomorrow.
Whoa.
And I thank you. That's what I was fishing for. So I'm turning 50 tomorrow, and I'm not kidding. This right here is probably the most thoughtful birthday present anybody has ever got me, because I was recently talking to my good buddy Pat Smear about the fact that I don't have an SG. And so that dude went out and bought me not just an SG, but a 1971 SG, which is my birth year. So that's what this is, 1971 SG. And he got it with P90s because he knows I love P90s.
I was going to say, it had to have P90s in it.
And to take it to the next level, and this totally blew my mind. My first good guitar I got for my 15th birthday. It was an 82 Les Paul that they called the Black Beauty, even though it has really nothing to do with the 60s Black Beauty. It's totally different. But when I got it, I didn't realize that those Tim Shaw pickups were like, like people liked them or whatever. And I don't know if people cared back then or not, but they became like something that people cared about. Mm-hmm. But I switched them out 100 years ago and lost them, and whatever. They're long gone. I put like a million different things in that. And in the SG case, Pat found a period correct set of fucking Tim Shaw pickups for me to put in my guitar to restore it to its original tone, which is like, honestly, it makes me want to cry even talking about it. It's honestly the most thoughtful thing anybody. Like, he put so much time into this. You know what I mean? It's unbelievable.
Yeah, that's a special guitar, man. So is that gonna live at home, or are you gonna take that out on the road?
Oh, I imagine I'm gonna get this thing road ready and bring it with us.
Oh, yeah, here we go.
It sounds great already. So yeah, this one's gonna come out with us for sure.
Yeah, I love the look of it too, just like the natural.
Totally.
Oh
yeah, it's so 1971. Look at that.
Yep.
Beautiful.
Nice, man. Yeah, and I know you're a P90 fan. You have the telly that you call the cleaver, right?
The cleaver, yes.
The cleaver.
I don't have one here with me, but I love that thing.
So you're playing that mostly live with your solo stuff. Do you play that live with the Foo Fighters stuff too, or does it kind of change up?
I mostly play that with Foo Fighters. I really like my signature tally. I really kind of designed with the Foo Fighters in mind, because they're like the production version has humbuckers in it. Okay. And then I had, when we were making Wasting Light, I got an old non-reverse Firebird that had P90s in it. I played that a lot, and I just kind of fell in love with the P90s. And I noticed it was like a nice, like, it just kind of was carved out a nice little tone difference, because we got 3 guitar players, so you kind of got to find your own little sonic space. So I started using that a lot. And then when we did the cleaver version of it, I put P90s in it, and it really works for both. I take it for my solo stuff, but it really works nice in Foo Fighters with that loud, crunchy distortion. You know?
Yeah. I'm a big P90 fan. I've got
I love it.
A couple of Jazz Masters that I don't ever really put down, with the P90s, and so
I've got great.
I've got a couple other guitars, with humbuckers and coil and all that stuff, and I always find myself coming back to my guitars with the P90s in them, because I feel like they just have that right amount of bite, or I guess it depends.
It's got a growl to it, and it kind of cuts through in a way that is, I don't know. It's like, it's just got a honky growl thing to it that I love.
Yeah. So I think, so I saw you guys when you came through Shuba's in Chicago. I think it was like September of 2019 or something like that.
Sounds about right. Yeah.
And I know, if I can remember correctly, you were playing like was it a AC30 or what?
AC15.
AC15. That you had like a new speaker just put into it or something like that. Are you still rocking the AC15 or?
I don't. Did I put it? Oh no. I think, was I playing an AC15 for that show? No. That was my Princeton.
Okay.
That I had to put a new speaker in. That's right. That day, we played the night before. I don't even remember where it was, in Milwaukee maybe, and my speaker blew right away. And luckily, the band that we were on tour with, one of the guitar players had a Princeton, let me use it. But we drove to Chicago and got my amp fixed that day and put a new speaker in it. And it actually sounded so much better than the amp. I thought the amp sounded good anyway, but it sounded so much better when I put the new speaker in it.
Yeah. I remember hanging out and you just be like, oh man, like, this sounds incredible.
yeah. That amp's actually right in the other room. This amp that I have, can you see that thing?
Yeah.
That is a Fender Vibrolux, an old Tweed Vibrolux that has a greenback in it.
Oh man.
Which grits up real nice. I use that a lot for recording.
Our guitar merchandiser Pat would be freaking out right now if he's watching. He's probably like, "Yeah, that's a great amp."
Yeah, good choice. Good choice.
He's a big fan. But
I tried to set up the my champ in here, but my champ's all screwy right now, and it's like I don't know what's wrong. I tried to reset the tubes, but I don't know. I think that one has to go to the shop.
Yeah,
but this one still works.
There you go. Yeah, I'm rocking. You know, just I have when Electro-Harmonix did the reissue of the MiG 50, and I love it. It sounds great, but it's so loud for my little apartment. Luckily, my neighbors like love to blast dubstep and whatever at 3 a.m, so I don't feel bad playing guitar, you know, loudly in the middle of the afternoon. But I'm like, I do want to find like just a lower wattage, you know, little amp. You know, is that like 15 and 30 watts, or what is the Fender behind you?
I don't know. That's a good question. I know that AC 15 that you were talking about, which I use a ton, and I use that a ton for recording with Foo Fighters. I don't know where I think that might be out at the studio right now, but that thing has a switch, so you can turn it into 7.5.
Oh, there you go.
Watt. Yeah, which is great.
Yeah, sometimes I feel like the lower wattage, and then you crank it up a little bit more. It's its own sound. You know, I mean, it sounds.
You know what I love at our studio, because we've been doing a lot of Foo fighting lately, and at our studio in our rehearsal room, I generally play through, instead of a 412, I have a 212 little mini cabinet.
Yeah,
I kind of like the way that. I wish we could take that out on the road, but I know all my bandmates would have their giant amps, and then it wouldn't work. But there's something about that 212 that it just sounds like tight, and it's compact, and it just sort of makes your gain like, just, I don't know, just sits in this perfect. It just feels like you can do no wrong, you know.
I feel I went. I saw you guys live. God, it must have been like 2004 or 5 or something like that. You were on tour with Weezer, and the big backdrop of your guys' stage setup, it just was like tons of amps or cabs or something like that. You know, like the classic rock back style. So obviously I'm assuming that not all of those are cabs that are plugged in. A lot of them are, you know, decoration or anything like that. But how many amps are you normally playing through, you know, when you're playing those big venues? Or
well, with Foo Fighters, I have the Friedman Brown Eye going through. It's going through 2 412s, I think, on stage. I think like when we have the big rig, I think it's going through 2 412s, and then I have an AC 30 that's also going through 2 412s, and then I just A/B between them.
Nice. There you go.
Yeah, they're not like stacked, like, you know, super stacks or whatever, but like, you know, they're just kind of side by side. I think that's what it is. Yeah.
Is that just dependent on the guitar you're playing and what amp you're using, or is it just
it's sort of dependent on song? Different songs. You know, some songs want that AC 30 jingle jangle, and some songs want the crunchy, you know, Thin Lizzy rock.
Oh yeah, totally.
You know, yeah.
So I wanted to ask too. There's the sirens.
That's right. No, that's not even that's the brakes on the garbage truck.
Oh, that's what that is.
That's what they have, brakes on the garbage truck.
So they weren't even sirens to begin with.
Who knows? Yeah.
There you go.
Welcome to my garbage depot.
Yeah, if you need to find Chris, you can find him down by the dump, right?
That's right.
But yeah, no, I wanted to kind of ask you about you know, some recent Foo Fighters stuff, and you know, you guys released the album a couple months ago. How's that process been?
Yeah, really good. You know, it was weird that, you know, we finished it before COVID, and then I had to sit on it, you know, for a while, but so that was strange. And then it's very strange to put a record out and not be able to play shows. Like, you honestly, like, there's sort of no way to really gauge anything. You're just kind of putting it out there. I mean, it seems like people, you know, were like, the response on my Twitter page seemed positive, but like, you know, when you're not playing shows, it's like, you just don't know, you know?
Yeah. Totally.
But yeah, no, the whole thing was I felt like as good as it could be, given the circumstances. And we've been working a lot.
Yeah.
And you know, but it's a trip. It's like, you have to like film all your TV performances at our studio and send them out and do that whole thing. And we did a couple of live streams, and then we played that Vax Live event last weekend, which is going to air this weekend on TV somewhere. And that was really fun. We played like really good, you know, like it's, you know, been a minute since we've been up on a stage in front of people. And it was just great. It's a really, really good time. And I didn't know, cause, you know, they did it like it was like somewhat socially distanced and all that. so you didn't have like people jammed up front jumping all over each other like they normally would be. But I didn't even think about that when we were playing. It just, you're just looking out, people seemed really excited to be at a live gig. And it was cool. It was really fun.
I know. I can't wait to get out to some live music again. I'm actually planning a trip to come out to California, and I'm going to see my first probably live show, since pre-COVID.
Nice.
In July. So I'm getting pretty excited. I told my friend, I'm like, yeah, the next time you see me in person, I'll probably just be, out of crowd surf retirement, just trying to really soak it all in. But yeah, no, I'm excited.
It seems like there's like more optimism about touring coming back now. I don't know when it's going to come back exactly, but hopefully sooner than later.
Yeah, I was gonna ask, if there's stuff on the schedule, or you guys did the event. But are you guys gearing up to kind of get back into that world?
Yeah, I mean, I would think we're pretty much ready to go. Just we need the thumbs up.
Yeah.
From whoever is in charge. Who's in charge?
Hey, who's out there?
Yeah. We would, I mean, if we could, we'd probably hit the road tomorrow. It's just a matter of obviously there's a lot of logistics there, but and it's not up to us, but we're ready.
Yeah, man. Well, cool.
And by ready, I mean completely unrehearsed.
Hey, I mean, it wouldn't be, authentic live music, if it was. So
that's how we're not playing to track.
Exactly.
All those mistakes.
Like,
that's right.
You see that guitar flub? That was awesome, right?
Yeah. It's funny, from the Vax Live thing, it's, people probably know we Brian Johnson from AC/DC came out and sang Back in Black with us, which is like one of the great highlights of my life. And I was, obviously understandably like nervous because it's Back in Black and everybody knows how that song goes and you don't want to screw up any of those parts. And it was like coming up on the guitar solo, and I've been like practicing the guitar solo at home for like a week, like I really didn't want to screw it up. And I go over, and this is such a like, just haven't been on the road for a minute, kind of confused. Uh-huh. And I go over to turn on my boost for the guitar solo, and I kick on my kill switch. Oh. So it just goes completely dead.
It's like the opposite of
no! Yeah, I know. And quickly got it on before it started, but I was like, oh man, that was close. That was close.
Cool, man. Well, I did want to kind of ask a question from the chat. In the tele builds that you're using, what kind of P90s were they noiseless or?
They are noiseless, yeah, and they are Lindy Fralin. I think they might be like a little overwound, maybe something like that. I always forget the details on that, and I've asked my guitar tech like 10,000 times because it was his idea.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's what it is. Yeah, Fralin noiseless, overwound like 5 or 10%, something like that.
There you go. Yeah, man. I going back to the whole P90 thing, that makes sense that they're noiseless because I mean that's one of the kickers with why a lot of engineers hate P90s, because they have
totally
have that buzz. So was it pretty obvious move to go with the noiseless? You
do a lot of this in the studio, like no,
yep,
no,
like where's your cell phone? Turn it off. Yeah. Cool, man. Yeah, no, I think a lot of a lot of the pickups in general and P90 and tone and stuff out there is all very subjective, into what you hear and what you like ultimately coming out of them. Do you plan on kind of taking a mix of different guitars out on tour next, or do you kind of just stick to the P90s all around?
No, I always bring a mix. I mean, I have a 57 Les Paul that was a gold top, but somebody took the paint off somewhere along the line, which is why I picked it up at a better price. Had it still had that paint, would have been a lot more expensive, but it's got the original PAFs in it, and that guitar sounds ridiculous. So I always bring that out. Bring a couple of the cleavers. Somebody posted a picture of me playing a Flying V the other day. I was like, oh, I gotta dig that out. I need to bring that out for sure. We usually have a couple of different rigs, kind of in different places of the world when we're touring a lot. So you usually have an A rig and a B rig, and usually take about like 8 guitars or something, just because everything, you got to have one that's in D tuning, and then you got to have a backup, and then bring a bunch of stuff. But honestly, when we're playing live, I don't like switching guitars a lot. I like to have my guitar that I'm playing for most of the show, and it's usually the Cleaver most of the time. And there's just something about the way your guitar feels when you've had it in your hands for a few songs. It just kind of feels like it gets warmed up, and
exactly.
And you don't, and then I don't want to put it down. I don't like doing a lot of guitar switching.
Yeah, I think I tried to do the whole I'm going to switch guitars for this song or whatever, and then it didn't end up working out very well for me. And I'm like, all right, I'm never switching guitar again unless the string breaks, or something.
Yeah, I mean that's always the hard thing on my solo tours, because I'm doing it in a van, so you've got limited. Like if it's a Foo Fighter tour, I could be like, bring them all, and my pedal board is as big as a spaceship, you know what I mean? But when it's my solo tour, I'm like, okay, I can basically bring 2. And then all night you're kind of like, well, I know I'm gonna have to put a capo on, and then I'm gonna have to down tune. So you're constantly doing that boogie woogie of, it's not as easy.
Yeah, I think it's cool you actually brought that up, because I noticed that when I saw you at Shuba's that you guys were just in a 15-passenger van, kind of just doing it the old school way. Is that something you just really enjoy, and you just want to be in that van with your bandmates and I mean,
yes, I do like touring in a van. I think it's very different.
Mm-hmm.
It's obviously you see wherever you're going in a totally different way than being asleep on a tour bus or flying over it in a private jet or whatever. So I mean that part of it I do really enjoy, but also I can't rationalize taking a tour bus out when I'm playing to 100 people in a bar somewhere. It's just the numbers don't add up. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So I thought it was super cool, because I was just like, hey, I've toured in a van. It's very relatable. I feel like to a lot of smaller artists and
well, that's why I took the Princeton. Honestly, that's why I took the Princeton. Just space. You know, we have a little teeny bass amp. We have a little teeny Princeton. A couple of guitars. I tell my drummer to bring the smallest set he can, and
you guys didn't even have a trailer, I don't think, right? Was it?
I know. We got to step it up and get a trailer. We got to get the trailer. I don't know. It's too tight in there.
Trailers are awesome, but I've had so many bad stories with trailers where I'm just like, if I ever tour again, which it might be in my future, might not be. I'm like, no more trailer. But
I don't think I've ever toured with a trailer. Isn't that weird?
Yeah.
Of all the van tours I ever did, I don't think we ever had a trailer.
If you do end up going out with one, just make sure you got new tires on it.
Yeah.
And you'll be okay. I had
to know.
A tire blow up, in the middle of the highway, and then you're like, oh shit, what do I do?
Well,
now?
I think you have to drive so slow with those things too, right?
Yeah. You're supposed to, I think.
Right. We pedal to the metal in my van. Come on.
We're already 30 minutes late for sound check. No, I think it's one of those things where if you can avoid getting into any certain tight spots, then you're good.
Right.
But as soon as you do, unless you know how to back that thing up, which I don't, so I always gave it to our guitar player, and he was like, "Oh, I can do it." And I'm like, "All right, great. I'm gonna, go sit over here while you do that."
That's my job, to not drive the van.
Well, totally. Well, Chris, there was another question in the chat here that I wanted to ask, and so Larry is coming up to a milestone in a couple of years, and his question for you is if there's a chance for the Shiflett brothers walking the floor. I'm sure Scott and Mike have some great stories, plus Face to Face has a new album coming out. Is there any possibility of doing those?
Larry, do you really think I want my fucking brothers on my show spilling all the beans about my embarrassing childhood moments? Come on, man. No, that would actually be really fun. I've talked to Scott a million times about having him and Trevor from Face to Face on, and we've never gotten it together. So yeah, at some point here, that would be fun.
There you go. You didn't have your dream of a family band, but you could do a family podcast.
That's right. Right. Bring it into the new school. Well, maybe that will inspire us to get that family porch band together.
There you go, man. Well, cool. Well, hey, man. I really appreciate you coming through and answering some questions for us and just talking about some gear and music and everything like that. Was there anything else you wanted to kind of leave the audience with before we head out?
I love you all. I feel like we covered all the stuff. Yeah.
Yeah,
we
man.
did Foo Fighters. We did solo stuff. We did podcast. We did family. Boom.
Family.
We did COVID.
Man. COVID.
I want you to know that I got my second vaccine 2 days ago, and I was really nervous that I was going to be like in a vaccine K-hole for this thing, but I feel great.
Yeah, there you go. I got mine on Friday, so I was kind of thinking the same thing. I'm like, I have a little bit more, couple more days on you there, but I was like, man, the first one knocked me out, man, for like 5 days. I was like,
really?
Yeah. It was
I didn't have any effects from either of them, really. I mean, I was a little like spacey yesterday, but I was all day. I was waiting for it to kick in because I know so many people. Then I got Moderna, and I know so many people that the second Moderna shot really like screwed them up. So I was just waiting all day, and every time my wife would be like, "Hey, can you like unload the dishwasher?" I'd be like, "I don't know, babe." COVID vaccine. I don't know. I don't know if I feel up to it. So by the end of the day, she was just like, "You're a fucking pussy. Shut up. You're fine. Take the fucking trash out. Stop whinging." Yeah.
There you go.
But nothing ever really happened. I was stuck. I mean, my arm's a little sore, but fine.
There you go, man. Yeah, you put some, my CBD cream, really helps with that. If
don't go pushing your drugs on the kids watching this show. Come on, man.
I was like, I don't know. I'm like, oh, it's legal.
Yeah, I find myself drawn to Microsoft products now. I can't explain it, but it has nothing to do with the vaccine. I'm sure. Yeah.
Well, cool, man. Thanks for joining us here, and thanks for everybody watching. If you have any other questions for Chris, feel free to put them in the comments or anything like that. We'll try to get to them. But yeah, man, good luck with everything in the future. And next time you're through Chicago, we'll have to grab a hot dog or something.
Oh, for sure. For sure. Red hot, man. Baby. I'm all about the red hot. All right,
man. Well,
thank you, guys.
Bye.